contracts and
that's
choosing
generous.
those vendors.
But what you have is the Republican operative.
Well, you're trying to insinuate that
I'm not insinuating. I'm stating a fact. The fact is
you're saying that
Before we get into the full back and forth, you need to see the pressure cooker this hearing becomes, because the moment you just saw is where the floor completely drops out. By the time Senator Welch gets there, he's already peeled back layer after layer of evasions, contradictions, and conveniently foggy memories. And Kristi Noem, who walks into this hearing projecting confidence and discipline, slowly shifts into pure defense mode. This is not a calm policy discussion. It's a confrontation over a $220 million contract, a no-bid award, a company created less than 2 weeks before getting over 100 million taxpayer dollars, and personal ties that just keep piling up. And Welch isn't just casually walking through it, he's tracking every deflection, every attempt to change the subject, and every moment where Noem tries to talk around the problem instead of answering it. From the very beginning, you can feel him tightening the screws. He knows the math, he has the documents. He knows exactly how long before the award the company was incorporated. He knows who knows whom, and he's ready to walk each connection down one by one. And here's why this matters. Welch isn't arguing that she personally wrote the contract. He doesn't need to. He's showing the pattern, the opacity, the proximity, the relationships, the money flow, the timing, and the decisions made by people in her orbit. And Noem knows what he's doing. She feels the trap closing, and she tries to widen the escape route with process answers, procedural vagueness, and that "I wasn't involved" refrain that comes up again and again when the details get uncomfortable. Watch how the momentum builds. Welch starts with the procedural question, how this no-bid contract came to be. And every time he tightens the question, Noem loosens her wording. Every time he narrows the timeline, she broadens the explanation. Every time he gets specific, she gets general. He wants a yes or no, she gives a paragraph. He asks about a company created 11 days before a $143 million award. She brings up reviewing 10.
I want to move on to the use of department resources. Senator Kennedy asked a number of questions about this contract, $220 million. Senator Schiff asked about it as well, and I do too. I don't want to question what the purpose was, but how the award was made. This is $220 million. It was an advertising campaign, as I understand it, that featured you, and you on a horse at Mount Rushmore. The contract was a no-bid contract. You acknowledge that?
I wasn't involved with this contracting process, so my understanding is that there was many companies that competed for this contract.
The answer to that is yes or no.
I don't believe it was. I believe other companies competed for this because there was two different vendors that were chosen.
I have here a document from usspending.gov. And this document specifically states the justification for no bid contract that goes to Safe America Media and People Who Think. Those are the two entities that did the campaign, correct?
I believe it is. I wasn't a part of this contracting process.
Let's get serious here.
Yes.
Okay. Make the Safe America was incorporated 11 days or 7 days by my count before they got an award of $143 million. You have any dispute with that?
Are you talking about the subcontractor on that contract? Because we have
Safe America.
Senator, I wasn't a part of this decision.
Okay.
We followed the same processes that have been our policies and how this was conducted appropriately.
I will go through this and then you can answer. I don't want us to be talking over each other. Safe America was incorporated 11 days or 7 days by my account before they got a $143 million contract. Now, as an administrator who has fiscal responsibility over a huge budget, do you realistically think that a company that was created 11 days before they got $143 million is in a position to execute on a $143 million contract?
Senator, I can't speak to their business model. I will tell you that since I've been at the department, I have reviewed over 10,000 contracts. I
let
have
me keep
saved the
going through this.
taxpayers
I don't
over
want to filibuster.
$13
I
billion
want to go through this,
by
Madam Secretary.
renegotiating contracts and being more efficient.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want the filibuster, all right? And I want my time back. I'm not denying her.
Right away, Welch comes in with a simple, almost deceptively calm question. Was this a no-bid contract? And instead of just acknowledging the documented reality, Noem swerves into a general statement about companies competing. The first red flag is that she doesn't say yes or no. She says, "My understanding is," which is one of those phrases politicians use when they want distance without making an outright denial. Welch immediately sees the dodge. He cuts in. The answer to that is yes or no. That's his way of planting a flag. You're not drifting into generalities. You're answering the question in front of you. And then comes the crucial part. He presents the government document, not speculation, not rumor. An official justification for a no-bid award. That's when Noem pivots to the shield she will use over and over. I wasn't part of the contracting process. Here's what's happening in that moment. Welch is not asking whether she personally filled out the paperwork. He's asking whether she acknowledges the facts. And instead of confirming what the record shows, she retreats into process. Then, Welch brings out the timeline bomb that Safe America, the group that received $143 million, was incorporated only 11 days earlier. 11 days. You can hear the shift in the room. 11 days is not a setup. It's not an established operation. It's barely enough time to order business cards. And for a contract of that size, that timing is a massive red flag. Welch hits the key question. Do you realistically think a company created 11 days earlier can execute a $143 million contract? That question is devastating because there's no safe answer. If she says yes, it sounds absurd. If she says no, it undermines the entire process. So she doesn't answer the question at all. She starts talking about reviewing thousands of contracts during her time at the department. That's a narrative pivot, and Welch knows it. That's why he interjects. I don't want filibuster. I want my time back. That's not just frustration. That's telling the viewers in the committee that she's avoiding the question. It frames her response as deliberate evasion. And the moment he regains the floor, he goes right back to the documented timeline. He doesn't let the attempted distraction stand. That's how you keep control in a hearing. You don't chase the detour. You drag the witness back to the evidence. And at this point, Noem is no longer steering the exchange. She's reacting. She's responding to the structure he sets. He's building towards something, and she can feel it coming. Now let's go into the second block, where Welch brings out the personal ties, the political connections, and the financial overlaps that turn this from a suspicious contract into a network of relationships that becomes impossible to ignore.
A chance to answer. I'm asking you to deny her the abuse to filibuster. Okay.
Of that.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll go through this. All right. This is on a U.S. government website that says that contract for $143 million was a no-bid contract. Public documentation says the contract of $143 million went to the Safe America company, created 11 days before they got an award. That company then subcontracted with the strategy group, and you are familiar with many of the principles in the strategy group, correct?
I know one of them.
Mr. Yoho.
Yes.
And let me show you a photograph. That's Mr. Yoho standing next to you, correct?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Yoho is also the husband of your former spokesperson. Is that correct?
Correct.
Tricia McLaughlin.
Yes.
So your former assistant secretary and her husband are the ones that got the subcontract from Safe America, or from Safe America. That's what the record shows. Any dispute about that?
No, except there was no politicals, myself or anyone else besides career employees who are a part of that process.
Except
for putting out those
well,
contracts and
that's
choosing
generous,
those vendors.
But what you have is the Republican operative.
Well, you're trying to insinuate that
I'm not insinuating. I'm stating a fact. The fact is
you're
that
saying that I
Mr.
weighed in on this
Yoho,
contracting process, and I did not.
Mr. Chairman, the fact is that Mr. Yoho was married to your assistant secretary, is married, correct?
Yes, they are still married.
All right. And Mr. Yoho also ran an ad campaign for you in your gubernatorial campaign, correct?
Yes.
And he also attended your inauguration.
Yes.
And Mr. Yoho received $8.5 million, or his company did, from the taxpayers of South Dakota when you ran an ad promotion showing you doing various jobs, like a plumber and a dentist, correct?
Again, that was done according to the law and processes at the state of South
I
Dakota.
understand, but
Yes,
this
well,
is a person that worked on your campaign. This is a person that worked on your media plan in South Dakota when you were governor, and this is a person who also worked on your memoir. Is that correct?
on my memoir.
And he worked with Mr. Lewandowski. Is that correct?
I don't know, sir. I don't know about the business arrangements they've had in the
Mr.
past.
Lewandowski is your special advisor.
Special government employee.
Right.
For the White
And
House.
Mr. Lewandowski brought Mr. Yoho into your camp. They had worked on the Louisiana governor's campaign, correct?
No, I knew Ben Yoho before that.
All right. So the person that you knew, Mr. Yoho, the husband of your assistant secretary, is the person in the company that got the subcontract 11 days after this original company, Safe America, was founded. That's the record. So I have a question. Did Mr. Lewandowski receive any compensation directly or indirectly from Safe America or from the strategy group?
Senator, I don't have any information to that. I can't speak to that.
Would that be of interest
think so.
for you to find out?
Sure.
Well, so will you ask Mr. Lewandowski, did he get any compensation directly or indirectly from these contracts?
Are you asking me to go ask him?
Yes, I am. Ask your special government advisor.
This is where the tone changes. The first half is about facts and paperwork. The second half is about people. And Welch knows the power of names, photos, and relationships. He starts with the subcontractor, the strategy group. And once he has her on record acknowledging she knows Ben Yoho, he takes the hearing somewhere she cannot easily walk away from. He shows her the photo. That's not a political argument. That's not an opinion. That's not a vague association. It's evidence. Visual, undeniable evidence. Her answer? A short, clipped yes. No elaboration. No pushback. That's the sound of someone who knows that expanding the answer only digs the hole deeper. Then Welch reveals another connection. Yoho is the husband of her former spokesperson. Again, she confirms it. That's two major links, personal and professional, tied directly to the person whose company received millions through this subcontract. And here's where Welch deploys one of the sharpest moves in any hearing. He rejects the idea that he is merely insinuating something. He says flatly, "I'm not insinuating, I'm stating a fact." That is a rhetorical strike. It reclaims the framing. It makes clear that he is not speculating, not accusing without basis. He is reading the record. And once he draws that line, Noem is boxed in. Then, he brings in the history. Yoho worked on her gubernatorial ad campaign. Yoho attended her inauguration. Yoho's company received $8.5 million for her promotional ads back in South Dakota. All confirmed. One by one, these connections strip away her distance from the contracting process. It becomes harder and harder for her to maintain that she had nothing to do with the vendor selection when the vendor is a longtime political ally, campaign worker, social attendee, and the spouse of her former assistant secretary. And then, Welch drops the final move, the outer ring of the network, Corey Lewandowski. He asks whether Lewandowski received any compensation, directly or indirectly, from these contracts. Noem says she doesn't know. That answer tells its own story. Welch then asks if she'll go ask him. That's a brutal moment, because agreeing to ask means the question is legitimate, and refusing to ask would look like fear. So she agrees, and he locks it in by asking. And you'll get back to us? She says yes. That's not just a promise. That's an open loop, a public commitment on the record. And that alone shows how thoroughly Welch controlled the close of this exchange. Here's why this moment matters. Up until that point, Noem's strategy was distance. I wasn't involved. I wasn't part of the process. I didn't make those decisions, but now she's agreeing to investigate whether her own special advisor may have received compensation connected to a politically connected subcontractor operating under a no-bid award to a company founded 11 days earlier. That's not distance anymore. That's entanglement. And that is where she loses control. Not through a single sentence, but through being pinned to a chain of facts she cannot unwind. Let's break down the dynamics of why Welch came out stronger in this exchange. 1. He controlled the tempo. No matter how long her answers became, he always returned to short, precise questions that forced clarity and exposed evasion. 2. He used receipts. Government documents, incorporation dates, subcontractor details. This wasn't improvisation, it was a guided march. 3. He peeled back personal connections only after establishing the structural issues. That sequencing is crucial. He didn't start with the personal ties. He earned credibility by grounding the hearing in verifiable data first. Then, once the factual base was secure, he built the network on top of it, making the final picture unavoidable. 4. He refused to let her frame the debate. Whenever she attempted to pivot into unrelated talking points, reviewing thousands of contracts, general policy processes, he cut off the drift and pulled her straight back to the documented timeline. 5. He forced a commitment. Getting her to agree to go back, ask Lewandowski directly, and report the answer back to the committee is not a small concession. It shows that she no longer had a safe rhetorical exit. And what about Noem's strategy? Her approach leaned on distancing language and procedural generalities, common tactics when facing uncomfortable oversight questions. But that strategy collapses once the questioner shows personal familiarity, past collaboration, and mutual political history between the witness and the contractor. This is what we call a credibility unraveling. A witness can deny involvement in the technical process. They cannot deny past relationships that are already documented, photographed, and acknowledged. What makes this hearing so explosive is not shouting or insults. It's the quiet moments where you watch her struggling to move the goalposts while Welch keeps dragging them back to the original line. And by the end, she isn't defending the contract process anymore. She's just defending herself. That's when the power dynamic fully shifts. The bottom line: if you want more breakdowns like this where powerful people get pressed on the record, hit subscribe and drop your take in the comments. Who do you think came out stronger in this hearing? And what was the one moment that changed the whole exchange?